All right, so are you still on the fence? Is social media something that you can really grow your business with? Well, it's episode 74 of the 1004 show, and we are here with Jessi, DiPette, the founder of Get Social 757. You guys can learn about them at getsocial757.com. So, really, how can social media help you? One of the biggest marketing issues that she has seen businesses go through. Also, what's pretty interesting is she's gone through some pretty devastating issues personally in her life and how she got through them and has been able to grow her business from that. And millennials, are they all that they're cracked up to be or not? It's episode 74 of the 1004 show with the founder of Get Social 757, Jessi DiPette. Let's get into it.
I grew up in Williamsburg. I went to University of Miami.
What made you go there?
They gave me full scholarship. They took away my gen eds, and I loved it. I really liked it down there until I started hating it. Miami's not a nice place. It's very superficial. It's a very big difference from, someone who grew up in Williamsburg. And I didn't want to continue to be surrounded by just the pettiness down there. So it was quite a blessing. I ended up getting out of there early, a semester early. Came back, got my head cut open, and I'm good now.
What were you studying there?
I studied advertising. Started as a broadcast journalism major. I was a theater kid in high school, and I switched to advertising, PR, and theater.
What interested you in the broadcast news world?
Well, theater kids said I could be on camera and I like writing. That seems like a good combination of the two. And once I got into the major and the classes for it, it was a little bit too uptight of a feel for me. I'm much more of a creative brain, and I like to make people laugh, and that's just not sort of the traditional news cycle.
What do you mean by uptight? What do you mean by uptight?
So when you deliver a news story, generally speaking, your producers want you to tell the story, interview somebody, and leave. And the news writing style is very much deliver information. Versus me, I'm like, deliver information, insert a few puns, and, continue talking to somebody. So it was a little bit of a different feel to just sort of the voice of news than I expected.
The voice. So like when you're talking, yeah, I got it. So I have a journalism degree. I actually finished. I have a journalism degree from West Virginia University. Miami was, DU was one of the ones that I looked at, was interested in going there. Grew up actually a pretty big Hurricane fan. I have a starter jacket. I think I showed you that starter jacket of University of Miami. But I feel like one of my biggest mistakes, and I think we all make mistakes, but I think not really understanding what the journalism world looks like, what the news world looks like until I graduated. And we weren't required to have an internship, which I think could have hurt me in this case because I had never gone into a newsroom before I basically got my first job. And it was such an interesting world as to what I was getting into. And deadlines, I learned a lot about deadlines and hitting that, and I think that's really helped me. But you're right about, it's through a specific person's eyes and what they want, and you don't get to necessarily tell that full story. And I think that might be why news, one of the reasons why news is dying, and people want to get the story piece out of it. What was it for you that kind of wanted you to finally get out of it?
I took an advertising class just to see. I had so much room in my schedule to play around with. I mean, that's why I could graduate early, and I had 2 minors. Then I just decided, let's try it. And it ended up being sort of the creative strategy behind it that really pushed me to want to continue and switch majors. Because I am an 8-year-old woman who does table puzzles, crossword puzzles, Sudoku, like on a daily basis.
What'd you say? You're an 80-year-old woman who what?
That's my inner self, apparently. I just spent the last year, like 50% of it doing puzzles. Yes, and man, I can knock out a 500 piecer in 3 days.
If you were a client and you said you didn't have enough time to do something, and you told me that you were doing Sudoku and playing chess and doing all day, I'd say, you know what, puzzles, you have some time to do that. So you took this advertising class, you really liked it. Was that the first time you were kind of introduced to something like that, or thought about marketing in that kind of way?
I had thought about marketing kind of in the back of my mind, but since I was so heavily embedded in sort of the theater world and being on stage and performing, that's why I leaned towards broadcast journalism. And it ended up being a good thing because it's what actually brought me down to Miami in the first place, was the fact that they had a specific broadcast program. But to some degree, and it sounds weird, it wasn't letting me think as much as I wanted to. It's the difference between taking some facts and kind of repackaging them for a news story, and taking some facts and figures and piecing them together to make something completely new, like an advertising strategy. But I also get to keep this creative half of my mind.
All within 2 hours, too, by the way. Because you have to, all within 2 hours, because it has to air, and the story, you learn about the story at 2, you have to air it at 4. So you can't really fact check. You can't really dig deep. You just got to say, oh, this is what I know now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And some of those little pieces of doing an advertising campaign, for instance, my senior year, my capstone advertising course, we did a full campaign for Bobby Flay's restaurant, Bobby's Burger Palace. And I was the account team director for that, and I also got to present, because, again, theater kid, Jessi has to be in front of people sometimes. But it was really fun for me to take these little kind of boring research, just factual pieces, and turn it into a really strong creative campaign that they're actually using now, completely nationwide. That's my other half from high school, was Food Network. I tried cake decorating for a while. Didn't last.
So you're a baker as well. So now you get out of school, you finish, you have an advertising degree, I'm assuming. So what do you do next? Where do you go after that?
Well, this is where the Lifetime Movie Channel would want to pick my story up. So my second semester, and this is kind of what made my college experience a little bit negative, but at the end of the day, it was a good thing for me. I started having a type of seizure called partial complex seizures. And essentially what it is, it scoops your awareness out for 3 to 5 minutes. And I would teleport across campus in my mind. I would go from my dorm to my class with a notebook out and a page of notes written before I came back down to full awareness. Super convenient at the gym, because I could be in a class, continue working out, and it would be like 20 minutes before I realized what I was doing. So I could physically function. I just didn't know it. And it took until my junior year, right after I finished junior year, for them to do a full EEG. They did a second MRI, and they found a tumor in my frontal lobe, and that was causing these seizures. So we had to get this fixed, and they did some pre-testing. I got some horse tranks knocked in my head. I got a few pre-op tests. Yeah, I like to brag about that one to my frat boy friends. They're like, oh yeah, I like this weed that I had today. And I'm like, yeah, you've been horse tranquilized? I have. And it was weird. Asked me lots about colors and numbers, but that was about it.
So how did you start understanding that? So you just started having these seizures, and
it was mostly the different situation that I'd be in. So I would wake up, for instance, across campus and be like, how did I get here? I accidentally stole from the grocery store once because I had a bag over my shoulder. Boom, Jessi's out of it, and boom, Jessi's home. And I'm like, what the heck? Did I pay for this? Well, apparently not. But it was just these repeated incidents of me kind of waking up with no sense of how I moved. And we thought it was some kind of stress-related PTSD kind of thing. That was the doctor's first thing. And it was after all this testing and continued episodes that they finally narrowed it down. But the good thing about finding a tumor, because I almost fell off the hospital bed when they told me that, is that A, it was benign, and B, they could take it out and stop it for good. So that's what I did right after college. I came home, graduated, and in January, I went in and I got my surgery done. So I have this really beautiful haircut. It destroyed my Italian mane on one side, because they took the tumor out. And part one of it was they put some platinum onto your brain surface to do a super intensive MRI, and then they cut out the tumor the next week. And it stopped it all. But it did put a very big roadblock in the way of me figuring out career-wise, how was I going to do anything? Because I had to come home to get the surgery done, and I couldn't drive for 6 months after that. I hadn't been able to drive since the seizure started, but it was 6 months after this surgery that I had to wait again.
What year?
So
what year is this? What year is this?
This is this year, 2017.
Okay.
Yeah, so I graduated December 2016. I had surgery right away, and I was out of the hospital early February, I think. Early February. And believe me, I had more than enough chocolate gift baskets for Valentine's Day to make it okay that I was alone. So yeah, it only took a few months of recovery, but I had to find something in this area that Mom and Dad could drive me to, because I had no transportation of my own. So I found a small, tiny little local agency that was within driving distance, and I started working there, first remote, and then full-time in their office as social media manager. And they gave me all their accounts and other various projects, etc. And then they moved their office to a non-drivable distance, and I started working full-time remote from this very desk. It was a very odd transition. The company was not at all where I needed to be at all. And after they decided to completely change directions of their company goals, what their services were going to be, and just so much internal drama between 4 people, amazingly. There was more drama than my entire college career. We parted ways, and I decided, let's start my own thing. Let's just do my own company. And it was weird because part of it was just this odd little psychological thing nagging me in the back of my head. If I do my own thing, I can finally take control of something myself. Nobody's driving me around, and this is kind of, I've relied on other people the last 4 years of college just because of the literal physical handicap. And I'm like, no, shoot, let me do something on my own now. I can. I have financial stability enough to be able to do this, and I know this community well enough.
So is that the first time that you thought about maybe owning your own business, or is it something that was in the back of your head that entire time?
Pretty much as soon as a few weeks in, maybe a month into working at this agency, I was just like, God, I need to get out. I need to do something on my own. And again, being so familiar with this community, and not to sound egotistical, but knowing my own talents and abilities, I knew I could do it. It was just sort of, the fear that I think every entrepreneur has about taking that kind of jump, that risk of like, oh God, what's going to happen if I just do nothing except for myself? But of course, as soon as they made this sort of service switch and they pretty much called me on the phone, were like, yeah, there's no point in you being here if you don't want to work with us. Bye. Extremely unprofessional, in my opinion, that they literally told me like the day of, oh, if you're done with your work today, you're done for the job.
I know that I haven't had a quote unquote job for a long time, but the few that I did have, there's definitely experiences that I've learned from each of them. And as I've been able to grow my team or work with other people, those scenarios, as painful as they might have been, working at different places, I took notes, basically mental notes, like, hey, don't treat people like this. And there's a lot of learning experiences from there, and hopefully that's something that you'll be able to continue to do yourself. We're talking to Jessi DiPette of Get Social 757. It's episode 74 of the 1004 show. Okay, so you are a theater kid. You go to University of Miami. You get out of University of Miami. You find out that you have a seizure. You have surgery on that. You have a bad scenario with your first out of college place, and then you decide, this is only like 7 things in 20 seconds, then you decide that, hey, maybe I have the skills to open up this business. So what was kind of the playbook or the process that put you through getting to where you are with starting that business?
So what I started with, obviously, was the idea. I I'm very much the type of person that I like to have a set plan, which is kind of weird for such a creative mind, but I kind of thought through, what exactly am I going to be offering these people? What is my general price tier? How am I going to bill them? And who do I want to go after? I didn't want to blindly step into something without some kind of map to kind of take me through it, because this is the first time I've done something like this. But, you know, having those extra kind of little support system of where I'm headed was very helpful to me. And I actually started, I got my very first client, actually. I owe my old company being bad, because we had an unhappy client who asked me on the phone if I would work with her as myself, as Jessi DiPette. And having her actually up front pay for me, it was a good financial backing for me to start. I got some business materials. I got this nice little package of business cards. And then I just hit the town. I did it old fashioned. My strength is definitely talking to people one-on-one. I think I'm very much the type that I can sit down in front of somebody, have a real conversation, make some real connections, and that's how I can sell you on what I have to offer. And so that's what I did. I took a few days. I drove around my hometown, just walked in CW, got some free samples from the peanut shop, and then talked to the owner and said, hey, I think you guys need Instagram right now. And lo and behold, 2 weeks later, I get an email from the overall marketing director of Smithfield Foods, which is a pretty big company. For anybody that's around this area knows. Virginia likes their ham and chocolate-covered peanuts, apparently. So that was really cool for me. And with every little success I had, everyone that I found was interested or knew people would sign and call me back and say, like, let's do this. It was good to have these little small steps that keep on building. And I think that's a very big factor in anybody who wants to continue driving forward. And of course, you know, through the process, I've had to reassess my pricing. I've had to fix and tweak things for each little client, because I'm dealing with small business here. So, you know, what one person's giant budget may be, somebody else has 25% of that to offer. So the beauty of the social media, digital remote work is that I can tweak it. One package that may say Facebook 7 times a week is going to be this much money, I can do $100 budget and post 3 times a week for somebody. You know, it's very flexible, which I found to be a good thing as far as dealing with small business.
Why is social media important for business? How do you convince someone that they should be on something?
Well, everyone else is. And that's kind of where it all stems from. Not only does Facebook offer so many paid opportunities now to get your message out there, 90% of the time, the first place somebody is looking for a business is on Facebook, is on Twitter. And through a Google search, these social media sites are the first ones to pop up in Google results, even ahead of the website sometimes. So if you have a Facebook page, you're going to be the first one on the list. And having a page that's upkept and up to date means you're going to show up higher. People are going to find you easier. And then looking like an active business is extremely important. Plus, it's a cheaper way to get announcements out about even something as simple as we're closing today. You know, how are people going to know? And you want people to be happy with your business. You want to reward them for being a part of your community. So you can do contests. I love contests because you can cross-promote with other business. I just ran one, for instance, for a realtor, and we really wanted to grow her followers on one page, a smaller page for well drilling, of all things. Doesn't sound like the most glamorous thing, but we put a contest up, asked people to tag 5 of their friends in the comments, and we expanded without paying. Her page went from 204 likes to 500 in 2 weeks. And now we have this beautiful, engaged online community to refer and share, you know, the word about this company with anybody else in the community. So that's a huge selling point, actually, is the referrals. If you have an engaged Facebook or online or social community of any kind, especially in an area like this for small business, so much of their business is going to come from referrals. And if somebody's on Facebook all day seeing your awesome status updates, they're going to mention you to somebody else who may become a client.
What type of things should people be posting on Facebook, and what's the frequency?
It very much depends on your business, but for the most part, I would say you post once a day, at least 5 times a week, and the more internal content, the better. So for service-based businesses, you want to have a few posts that remind people what you offer, give some contact information. I love posting testimonials. It really brings it back down to a kind of human aspect of what did somebody else say? That's what people want to know too. You got to have some funny stuff if your business is got that kind of personality, because social media is sort of geared toward that also. They quote memes, as I've heard some people call them, memes for everyone who knows.
I've heard someone call it a meme before.
Oh, I've heard that too, unfortunately. We shall educate this community slowly on the proper pronunciations of digital stupid photos. So those 4 things, and then also internal content, photos of your team.
Okay, that's what internal is. So like,
yeah.
What do you mean by that? Yeah.
Any photos of your team, any small little fun news that you come across. A campaign that I'm actually planning right now with a new client. They're an AC company, and we're gonna film their Sunday dinners, and we're gonna film them talking about the stupid things that happen on the job, on calls. Because people love to see that. People want to see not just the brick and mortar kind of like, oh, they're the, quote, business. No, you want to see the people behind the business. At my agency, we had one company take a picture of one of their technicians saving a deer, and it blew up. It blew up. The reach on that post, which is how many people are actually physically seeing it, was well over 15,000. For this one cute little picture.
Well, it humanizes it, right? And I think that's what people miss is social media doesn't mean that you're not a human. There needs to be, one-on-one interaction, and when people do something, you need to react to that. So you're what, 22? Is that what you said? And why should people trust you at 22 to run basically this huge element of their business? Or how do you handle that question?
Exactly that reason. Because I am 22. And I grew up using Facebook since middle school. So believe me, I can tell you what every little setting means. And I know how to pronounce meme. There's a big thing right there. It's just, I've had so much experience with it through my own personal use. And since I was younger, when I was in school, I had a number of internships specifically for social media upkeep. I ran a cookie company, and I never got free cookies, so I'm kind of bummed about that. I worked at Ferguson Enterprises, the big plumbing waterworks company, if anybody knows what that is. And I helped upkeep their Facebook campaign as well. So it's just the amount of experience I have because I'm younger. The professional work started younger. And then in addition, for companies trying to reach a younger audience, I already think like, but I've had enough experience and know-how with the older generation to tweak the messaging too. So for someone young, I like to think I have a very decent amount of experience. I have varied experience in agency, in corporate, freelancing, and I think a lot of different perspectives just working really pulls together into one kind of solid mindset.
Millennials, people have a lot of issues with millennials, it seems like. We're both millennials, but you're a lot younger millennial than I am. What's something about millennials that people don't really understand, and how could maybe they start to understand what's so convenient or great about millennials?
Well, not all of us are in it for the viral, sort of showy, out there, obnoxious that's the sort of image that a lot of millennials project, especially through social media. It's just this constant need to be obnoxiously in the spotlight for the stupidest things. But there are a lot of millennials who are taking all this in, all this energy and the constant news and the constantly changing things that we are used now to growing up with. That's what sets us apart, I think, really, from the other generations, is this ability to take so much thrown at us, chuck out the things that are irrelevant, and focus it onto our personal goals. So for those of us working, normal jobs, even somebody who's a waiter, younger millennials just out of college who had to get a job at a restaurant, They're taking in the fun stuff because they need it. They need a laugh at the end of the day. But it's helping them at the end of the day focus on their job, which is serving tables. For people like me who are trying to open their own business, I'm taking all this crazy social media and constant news coverage, funneling it into research for my clients and how to better speak to their audiences.
Good answer. What's the biggest marketing mistake you see businesses make?
It's a combination of A, not doing anything online, and B, overcompensating. I see a lot of businesses that if they are just keeping it kind of with social media, if they are posting something online or they're upkeeping an Instagram account, they're overdoing it to some extent, and they're trying so hard to reach somebody my age with this viral, crazy content, only funny stuff, that they lose the essence of their personal brand. And with any type of marketing campaign, print, email, social media, anything, that's the heart of it, is figuring out what your brand's personality is and sharing that with other people. You want to turn the brand into a person, and I think a good way to actually start is to create like a little profile. If you're a dentist, maybe make Sharon your dentist's little personality, and base your post off of whatever Sharon is going to tell you. But if you don't, if you're sharing all this recycled content, if you're just putting stuff out there because it has a lot of likes on it, you're going to lose what people came to you in the first place for. Especially with smaller businesses trying to make it, that's what ultimately sets you apart from the 12 other pancake shops in Williamsburg, for example.
Are there a lot of pancake shops in
Williamsburg?
Oh,
God, there are so many. They're like, Jiffy must have like a stronghold on this area because it's ridiculous.
So people hear social media is the most amazing thing in the world. My business needs to be on it, yada, yada, yada. And then they just post. They do exactly what they do exactly what they hear. Post. But then they don't understand that they're supposed to have a buyer persona or a person that could be that character, if you will. So how do you start establishing who that character is? How do you make the Sharon at the dentist office?
Mm-hmm. The first step is you really have to sit down in a completely just quiet space. And that's, I think, taking the time to sit and really create the persona in the first place is where a lot of businesses find they don't have time to do. When you're trying to upkeep something that's constantly running, if you have fairly good business, your secretary maybe is the one who has to upkeep the Facebook account or social media, but you may not have time to really think about it, and you find yourself just sharing other things or copy and pasting articles. But once you give yourself those few extra minutes to think about, what is the stay-at-home mode? Like when I was a mom and I was raising my child at home, what would I want to look for? What would make me feel better? Why would I want to see this? That's when you can start putting out stuff that your audience is really going to respond to versus just a rushed effort to just be there. It's the difference of having a presence and having a personality for your brand. Because being there is not the same as really being there for your community.
So do you recommend it's better to not post at all than if you don't have that kind of mindset, right? Where like you're being this person, is it better to then not post at all and not be on social media?
It's not. I would say that you should still have some kind of profile up, and you should take the time to fill out your business hours, your services, to have, your general bio built. But yes, it would be better for you to post one calculated brand persona post weekly than to inundate your timeline with just kind of just mindless stuff that's just going to sit there and sort of block the really good content that you're putting up. So take the time versus just plugging away for no reason. It's the difference between going to McDonald's 6 times in a day and taking the time to make like a good home-cooked meal.
What company, big or small, does social media really well?
I think everybody can agree that Wendy's kills Twitter. And what people don't realize is, yes, they have a lot of funny stuff, but they literally take the time to comment back on every single person that calls them out, that sends something directly to them. And that's where they get sassy and such. But they take the time to make these individual connections with people, which for Twitter is super important, because otherwise you just get lost in the mix of the timeline. For Facebook marketing, obviously my accounts are just beyond amazing, but I think there are actually a lot of people that do Facebook really well. And for a company looking to take inspiration, I would ignore other companies, and I would focus on, research sort of where you're going to take your posts from the people following your page, because ultimately that's who you want to reach. Look at what they're sharing to their friends. Look at what kinds of pictures and events that they're giving everybody an update about, because right, you want to do person to person is really the goal of social media, not so much business to person, with the exception of posting internal news, like we have an event going on, we're closed today. That kind of logistical business matters.
Very solid information. Personal brand. What do you think about personal brands? How do you start one yourself?
Again, I would start from the people. Start from the people you work with. If, for instance, if you're a serviceman, if you're an AC company, or talk to your techs, who is on the ground running for you, and just kind of in the back of your head, take note of what kinds of things come up in the office a lot. If for instance, every Friday somebody comes in with a giant Starbucks latte, make that a part of your social presence, because everybody will start to joke about that, and everybody will want to see, like, what's the crazy order of the week. And take mental note of what you hear other people saying about you. That's how you start piecing together, again, back to the puzzles, piecing together these little pieces that, just like a person, build up your brand. And keep in mind, however, because you are a business, one of these pieces has to be your services. You don't want to forget about that just because you're trying to build a personal connection. Part of your connection is the fact that, yes, I can fix your plumbing for you. Yes, I can sell you this super awesome sweater from Goodwill.
So what's the frequency then? How often do you
different.
What's the frequency then? How often do you post that?
For sort of like an outline plan, if you're going to post 7 days a week, one of those is great to have a testimonial or a review from somebody on the streets that you worked with. 2 should definitely be internal content. 2 of them should be something fun in the office, really cute pictures from being on the field. You want to have probably 1 post a week reminding about the contacts and or the services. 1 can be a fun one, like a funny meme you saw that relates to whatever your service is. This one, again, it would be better to include a funny picture from the office per se. And for your last 2, that's where you have some flexibility to run a contest. You can take a day off if you feel like your previous week was really strong. Because in the algorithm of Facebook, this is what a lot of people forget, is that the timeline is no longer the most recent thing. So businesses, take note. Always, always post a picture, a video, or a link. And going into 2018, this year, you want to have video content, because what that's going to do is take your content on this big mush timeline of everybody else throwing out their life story and prom pictures and whatever else. It'll put you right on top. Live stream videos, video content from Facebook itself. And take note, YouTube content and Facebook video are 2 different things. Keep it to Facebook if you can, because it will automatically play when you scroll by it too. But that's what's going to keep you on top versus regular just word status.
Yeah, definitely use the platform natively the way that it was built. I think that's something that a lot of people don't get. So, meaning if you have a video, don't post your video from YouTube to it. Upload the video, because that's what Facebook wants you to do. It's using the platform natively to do it. So I'm a business owner. I don't get it. How long should I have to wait? I'm posting. I've been doing this for 6 months. Like, I don't see results. Like, how long do I keep doing this for? Like, when do I know that I'm going to start seeing results?
Results usually happen. So if you're starting from sort of square one on social media, it'll be about 3 months before you start to really get an engaged following. And it is going to take a lot of trial and error, tweaking things. For example, my interior decorator client we're working together to sort of really solidify her brand personality. And that's what I'm saying. You can't really sit down and solidify that in one go if you're starting from square one. So we started with a little bit funnier sort of theme day posts, like a Wine Wednesday. And we're swerving back to a little bit of a different feel, more poised, more classy. And that's what we find people are engaging more with. So you have to pay attention to your analytics, which if you're a business, you can see those through your page. It's called Insights is what the little tab is. And you can find that at the top bar if you're an administrator. But you want to pay attention to what types of postings people are responding most to, which is how I actually started truly being loyal to testimonial posts, because people really, really responded to them. And it was a spike in the reach for our posts. A lot of people were seeing it and liking and commenting, etc. So don't rush. Be patient with it. And I know that's really hard for something that seems like it's going to be, for social media, everyone knows it's very fast-paced, but it's fast-paced content, not so much fast-paced results, unless you're doing a contest, because people like to win free things. That is fast-paced results. So take your time, tweak your posts, tweak your content, tweak the time you're putting them out, and you'll find the perfect formula for your independent businesses. You don't want to copy somebody else exactly, because again, you'll lose your brand personality. What? Do 1 month like this, do another month like that, do 1 week like this, do another like that, until you figure it out.
Although I feel like we've heard the entire life story about Jessi, what's something about you that people don't know about that you think is pretty unique?
Well, I mean, my go-to, I literally am the only person in the world with my name. Yes, Jessi DiPette. I'm literally the only one. In Italy, the name is DiPette. And in the United States, it's all my family. Literally, only my family. So... Well,
that's unique. There you go.
It is really cool, actually. I'm also lefty. So all you lefties out there, I understand the graphite hand syndrome. It's painful.
That's funny. What's your favorite business book?
My favorite business book?
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie. I've never really taken the time to read one. I love scrolling through LinkedIn, though, and reading the shorter articles. And again, maybe this is just me being a millennial with a short attention span. But if I'm going to read a book, I really like to just be entertained and kind of get out of the world. So my business advice has mostly come from previous bosses. Ironically, the old owner of my first agency job, he's my mentor through this. So shout out to Will Melton at Exponent Designs. He does website design fairly close, but he's been an amazing mentor for me in starting, running, and getting through the logistics of opening my own business. And I'm a person. So anything that I can learn from somebody one-on-one, I take much more valuable than something I find online or in print.
From a millennial perspective, I don't think a lot of people would expect you to say that. What's something that ticks you off? What's like a pet peeve?
Stupid people. Actually, a little pet peeve of mine is going through my public relations minor. My professor was amazing at instilling and drilling the AP style book into my head. So I can't help it now. I just subconsciously correct people's grammar sometimes. It's and if you say they is, I may have to leave the room at this point.
Well, please don't read anything that I write. Because I actually hate the AP style book and all that crap, but whatever, it is what it is.
Good grammar in general is its own book, though, and I think it's extremely important. It's actually funny. Probably wouldn't expect this, but one of my decompressors, I used to have my friends send me their college essays so I could edit them, because I find it stress relieving to just go through and find grammar issues. Apparently,
that's a unique occupation. What's something on your bucket list that's pretty odd?
I really want to go to the Galapagos Islands. I haven't had the chance to travel a lot, and I think poor future husband, whoever it is, he's going to have to take me there at some point. But I really love travel, and I love animals, and there's so many species there. And the other kind of fun thing is that there's not a lot of people who get to go there every year, so I'm like, ooh, must.
There you go. What's a bold statement of something that hasn't happened yet that you're willing to predict the future on?
I don't know. I don't really like to think too far in advance. I used to try and, through high school, I grew up and I have two brothers, older brother and younger brother. And my older brother really kind of paved a way for me to be super competitive. But this year with surgery and in and out of different jobs has been quite stressful. And I think the reason is because I was thinking so far into, this is what I should be doing. As soon as I graduate school, I need to be doing this. And it ended up being a little bit stressful that I wasn't there. So I am trying to change my perspective and just kind of, set goals without a timeline and make sure I accomplish them. And as far as the world goes, I'm really scared for our country. Who knows what's going to happen next year? That's the one thing I hate about millennials, is that we're very outspoken, unfortunately. It's kind of annoying.
You are. It's not annoying. It's a great thing. Jessi, DiPette, get social757.com. Appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Hey, thanks for watching this episode of the 1004 Show. I want to tell you guys about something that we just released that we're super passionate about. It's called Inbox. It's a series of scenarios that business owners have inevitably had to go through. And what do they do when they go through these? Stuff like, what happens when you get a bad review on social media? Or more deadly, what do you do when a customer tells you that they can't pay you for the work that you've done? Check it out in the show notes or at startwithhatch.com/inbox.